Welcome back to another episode of Fintech Chatter. I'm Dexter Cousins, your host and the founder of Tier 1 People, where for the past decade, I've been helping founders like today's guest identify and hire exceptional leaders. I'm talking about the 1% who can help you redefine what's possible for your business. 2026 is shaping up to be a bumper year in fintech. So if you're thinking about hiring in this next 6 months, now is the time for us to talk. There's a link in the show notes where you can reach out to me direct. And just a quick thanks for your support. If you are new to the show, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're listening on podcast, give us a follow so you never miss another episode. Now, on to today's guest.
By the way, another threat they made was to put me in jail for 3 years.
Really?
I'm like, what are you doing? I said, what'd you do with the money? You know, they got $300, $500. I'm like, what did they do? They said, well, you know, I was expecting them to like say, oh, I bought a PlayStation. That's not what they said. They said, I bought groceries and petrol.
Wow.
And that's where we are. So what does that mean? It's time to innovate. Perfect time to innovate. If we went and sued the Wright brothers for not having a pilot's license before they went and launched their plane, where would we be? And that's the problem, right? You got to work with innovators.
Hello and welcome to Fintech Chatter, the show where I connect with fintech leaders to talk about their secrets to success. I'm Dexter Cousins, your host and the founder of Tier 1 People, the executive search firm dedicated to connecting high-growth fintech ventures with exceptional leadership talent. Today's guest needs no introduction. Fred Schebesta was one of the early guests on the show, and a lot has happened since then. Fred is the co-founder and executive chair of Finder, one of Australia's most successful tech companies, now operating in 5 markets. And he's also the CEO of Finder Ventures. Fred, it's great to have you back on the show, my friend.
It's good to be back, Dexter.
Mate, where have you been? You've been in hiding.
It's been a lot's happened since last time we chatted. You know, I think the market's changed and it's a really interesting time. Interesting time.
Yeah. Well, we're here to talk about that. We're here to talk about some of the things that you've been doing. But one of the reasons I was really pleased to, that you kind of got in touch and wanted to have a chat is because I'm celebrating 10 years of Tier 1 People this year. Coincides with you celebrating 20 years of Finder. Incredible. Launched in 2006. And I'm really keen to speak with founders like yourself to kind of talk about, hey, what it was like to build back then. But more importantly, if you were building today and if you're continuing to building, what that looks like in the AI age. So maybe before we do that, if you could let our listeners know a little bit more about Finder, the business, where you're at now, and then we'll talk about the kind of origins of it.
Yeah, Finder is a place where you go and find really good deals on your insurances, utilities, banking products, stock trading, crypto, all sorts of so many categories you can go and compare stuff. And what's really unique is we have cashback deals where we basically pay you a card, an actual digital card that we give to you with cash when you go and switch things with us. It's called Finder Rewards. And I think what's really interesting, throughout time, where we started probably was a lot more about, I started off very much leveraging Google search marketing, and that's sort of evolved now throughout time to building a brand, building a distribution, building and innovating products. Yeah, it's changed very dramatically from 2006, where I was very early internet, specifically in search engine marketing, and we just really took advantage of that back then to build the business.
You've done a really good job, I think, of your kind of personal branding and put a lot of time and energy into that as well. But was that a conscious kind of effort on your part? And could you see the kind of beginnings of the end of the, that kind of huge content production model and the editorial team and, all of the infrastructure that went behind that?
I think it was 2021 is when I was like, oh, I think the vibe shift started. But I don't remember, why it was like something in me just went, just doesn't seem right anymore. Everyone's copying everyone. And then when the AI came in, I was like, okay, this is completely going to change. But
Yeah.
it just felt like Google really didn't value content as much as it used to. It wasn't as effective. It still works, to remove doubt. Content marketing will always and continue to work because there's always new things to learn about. There's new things to share, understand, expertise, knowledge, and packaging it in a way for people to understand it is
Mm.
never going to stop. Our approach, I think, needed to change. And I think
Yeah.
that has changed, and we've been quite successful in some other different ways of doing things. And I think we're going to obviously double down on those as well.
So let's talk a little bit more about Finder Rewards, because I think this is where the innovation in fintech needs to happen. And we're at a point now where there's real kind of pressure from a just an economy perspective as well, that Joe Public needs these products, right? Like we're even me, who I'm not worrying about the bank balance, but I'm constantly now conscious of looking at ways of saving, using points, using rewards. What was the kind of genesis for that shift? And can you talk us through kind of how that's evolved?
You could argue largely in comparison sites, they're offering fairly similar stuff. We actually have deals that no one else has. Like, and they are, I would say, arguably the best deals in the market. Like, if you do the maths, there are no better deals. And people, like you said, like, that is what people, like, I've interviewed so many customers of recent, and they are just making ends meet. And if you lose a job right now as well, that can really hurt. And people are preparing for that because it's changing. Lots of jobs are changing. So we really want to lean into that. I love when people get a great deal. I love it because, you know, why is that? Well, fundamentally, we don't want to be comparing stuff. You don't want to be like, why are you there in the first place? You're there because you got a mission and you want to go and save some money. And why do you want to save some money? Because you want to go and get that money and use it in your life. Whether it's to go and pay down a bill, pay down some debt, buy a bit of petrol, or like, do something small for yourself. Those things are at a premium now. Those
Yeah.
things are like, people like really feeling it heavily. And I don't think that's slowing down or stopping either right now. I cannot see the market economy changing. Suddenly prices and wages will go up, or, interest rates will come down. In fact, things are still hot and getting hotter.
Yeah.
And the longer it goes on, the more unemployment I think we'll start to get. And I think the more pressure people will feel. There's only
Yeah.
so much they can take.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Well, it means that every dollar counts even more. And I think that is what I love serving customers in that way. I love it. It's like having the best deals that people can, get cash. That feels me. It just philosophically, makes me excited. I went
Yeah.
and switched my broadband 2 days ago, and it happened same day, and it can't. And the policies switched over. I didn't have to call anyone. I just fill in the form on Finder, boom, and I'm going to get $250. This is so helpful. And I think what I've learned over time is, moving from these sort of marketing tactics and to actually, like you said, I think you talked about innovating products, actual creating things that don't exist, and the process is so smooth. Like, you literally sign up, you get your thing, and then we send you an email, and you download a digital card on your phone, and you just tap and buy your coffee, buy your petrol, buy your groceries. And I've spoken to customers that have done this. I said, what'd you do with the money? They got $300, $500. I'm like, what do they do? They said, well, I was expecting them to like say, oh, I bought a PlayStation, because remember when back in the day, people, they got that big bonus and they bought a flat screen TV or whatever. And JB Hi-Fi goes on sale for its flat screen TVs and its PlayStations.
Yeah.
That's not what they said. They said, I bought groceries and petrol. And that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's the kind of products and services people want right now. They want things that can help them, which is, I need to get through this next month. I need to get through the month after that.
Yeah.
That's what Finder was built for. Like, it's at its core, but we and I think now creating these products and helping people, it's fired me up again about,
Yeah. Yeah,
the
man,
core
that's
business.
awesome. That's awesome. Because I think back and, particularly if you go back 2017, 2018, yeah, everybody's talking about neobanks and PFMs and, hey, we can check your spending. And it was, there was no real pressure in the world, right? Like we had
No pressure.
very low interest rates, super low unemployment. It was kind of easy. And then we hit COVID and we thought it would be tough, but the government came to the rescue, paid everybody to be at home. Business had said, hey, don't worry, let's just keep the lights on. And I think there's a few things that have happened since then, which is obviously capital markets changed because interest rates in the space of 12 months, which has put a lot of pressure on businesses that now, hey, we got to see a 10x increase in productivity just to get a return on investment from any capital.
Yeah, I think you're so right. It's a different market, and people want practical. I asked the customer. I want to share this insight with you. I asked the customer, hey, when you go and save some money, what do you do? What does that actually mean?
Mm.
And they said the most insightful thing I've heard in a long time. They said, well, first thing I do is we sit down and we open the bank account up and we just start looking through our expenses and figure out which things we don't need. Like that's what people are doing.
Yeah.
They're literally scrolling through, that's what a PFM was supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
are like just log into their account and they scroll and they go, that streaming service, cancel. This, cancel. That, we're not going to do that. This, and they look for real practical things. I think then the second order is, hey, I'm going to optimize. We spent, $400 on energy last month. Is there any way our deal's up? Can we get better than that? Or they're sharpening their home loan, or that's a second order thing. But there is a real push, I think, and I don't think it's going to stop, is where people are just straight cutting. And I think that market, like you said, that's an interesting space because you need to really have some value to stick around.
Yeah.
You like you said, it's not whimsical, a high order ideas that are fun ain't going to survive. You need practical,
It's
reality.
not banking the unbanked either, right? Like we're talking about Australia middle class, right? Like this is
100%.
kind of that are now the kind of customers of products like this. Whereas a few years ago, you'd have been thinking, oh yeah, you're operating in the subprime markets and kind of young adults, and now it's career professionals with two incomes and kids going to school who are they're the kind of main users of these types of products as well.
What does that mean in terms of opportunity? I think is an interesting question, and I think what part of it is people looking for alternatives. Slightly like things that are cheaper that deliver the same outcome. I think, and I think they're also looking to solve their problems in ways where they're okay to put up with a few bumps. So what does that mean? Well, that means two things. If you have a way to create, an innovative product and it saves people money, they actually would be prepared to do it and put up with like things that it only kind of works. So what does that mean? It's time to innovate.
Yeah.
Perfect time to innovate.
Yeah.
Perfect time to go and put new stuff out there. People are like, actually, I'll give it a go. Because, like I can imagine the very first budget airlines. Oh, the seatbelts are horribly built or the chairs are super uncomfortable, but no one cared because I paid, 30% of the normal price. I think that's where we are. That's what the kind of customer is prepared to go and do. And I think if I'm looking at this, and this applies to all sorts of different categories where people would go, oh, I wouldn't compromise on my health insurance, my car insurance, loyalty scheme Now people are going, well, does that actually work? Does it actually matter? Does my home loan price really matter? I'll just actually go with the budget thing. Or if it's, you're offering some sort of service or you're offering some sort of, software, now is the time to put something out there. I think
Yeah.
that's exciting.
One of the things that I'm really kind of interested to get your thoughts on is, you've talked about the Finder app, and I think with AI, the idea of a PFM is completely dead in the water now. You've talked a lot about these exclusive deals. Like, what do you think is the moat for anybody who's got a business, thinking of launching a business, that now you go, hey, we've got something that's defensible?
It's a great question because all these ones will be challenged. So I can probably put them up, but they're going to be challenged fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I think you look at, I think Warren Buffett's probably one of the best moat investors, throughout time. I think one of them is brand. Brand is a weird one. Like, it's about awareness and attention, but also kind of a promise. And I want to talk about that if I can give that framework in a certain mindset. There was a test done with a morning TV show. They went to Costco and bought a diamond ring, and they went to Tiffany's and bought the same diamond ring, same carats. The Tiffany's one was like 20 grand, and the Costco one was, I think it was like 7,500. And then they took it to the jeweler, and the Costco one actually turned out to be slightly better than the Tiffany's one, very, very slightly, but this is obviously in micro, very, very small terms. But the Tiffany's one was, obviously 12.5 grand more. Now, what does that say to you? Like, what does that say? It's like, well, the reason why you want to go to Tiffany's is because I don't know how to judge diamonds, and I need someone to go and trust, and at least I can go and trust these people because, they put their address on all their jewelry and you know where they are and they've been around for a very long time, and that's what that brand says to you. What's surprising is Costco didn't price signal that, but Costco ain't going anywhere. And they still deliver the same service, but people have a different perception about the product. One can make 12.5 grand basically for free, or, from their brand. And obviously they invest in their advertising and all their product, and there's more costs involved to go and deliver that. But that's a good example where you could offer the same thing but charge more. And I think that's a long-term thing. It's really hard to go and quickly replace. And I think brands will become stronger and stronger because more and more brands will continuously be popping up, and you can build scams really, really fast right now. So I think that's an area. I think everyone's talking about like data, like, you've got this big database. I think data is interesting to some extent. I do think it's somewhat valuable. I don't know how fast it'll take before a lot of the data gets, into some big machine AI that's all about crunching data. Could happen. Difficult, very nuanced, lots of context, hard problem to solve, but there is the potential there. Have seen some people do it, try it before, and they've done a really good job of it. It always needs some manual little tweaks and things like that.
Yeah.
Even like the Finder database is nuanced, massive, takes a lot of work to go and maintain and keep up to date everything. This deal, that deal, what does that mean? How do you translate this new benefit that has been innovated to the customer to explain and change the price? Lots and lots of complexity, right?
Yeah.
I think
and
there
then
is
you got the
some
regulatory challenges around that as well, that if you get
Right.
it wrong, you
Then-
kind of, as you've experienced, even when you get it right, you can be held back for a number of years, and
someone needs to be
essentially
responsible.
game over. Yeah.
I think you're right. Compliance as well and regulation are sort of some of those areas. I think the other part
Do
is
you think compliance and regulation is a potential moat for fintech?
can be because in many instances, people and in very litigious markets, people don't want the liability. That's why you have underwriters.
Yeah.
Liability for promising something can be very expensive, particularly in litigious areas and where there's clear laws as well. And you don't know, there's a whole series of things. People just, you can't just randomly hallucinate an answer. and, you know, then someone ends up in a really bad situation or a wrong situation. I've seen AI agents now reach out and get sales contracts, or reach out and they could get I'm sure they'll be able to sign up and get licenses and be compliant. Whether or not that, do they have any liability to go after that? You
Yeah.
know, that's where it gets a little weird.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's
Suing an
super
AI.
complex, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super complex, right? And I think this is probably one of the advantages I think that anybody who's been building in fintech this last decade has over the rest of tech. That the mantra "move fast and break things." If you do that in fintech, right, you're likely going to jail. And I think you've had to move fast and make things in fintech, not break them. And that, I think that discipline, that you kind of have to be all of those other things around innovation. You have to be all those other things around moving fast, but you've got to do it with such precision that you're kind of talking about people in fintech being the elite athletes of of the business world. But I think that there's this really kind of interesting point that we're at now, and we've got three clear areas, certainly in Australia, where you see the majority of money, where you've got home lending and the housing space, $7 trillion market. We've got superannuation, $4 trillion. And then we've got payments and the infrastructure, that's that. And then overlaying all of that, we've got AI. I'm not sure where crypto and digital assets sits within that AI and payments piece, because I think it's kind of a layer of infrastructure, but it's going to be the layer of infrastructure that in the next 50 years, it's how, finder rewards will be tokens. I'm pretty certain at some point, right? Like it'll be some form of digital token or, kind of digital assets. Built a really strong profile in the crypto space. One of the early innovators, have always made bold claims, and kind of stood by that. Where do you see things now? And, where do you see it kind of heading in the next 5 years?
I think one of the biggest things that I I just look at the top sort of coins and what's popular, and I think what I find really interesting is two of the top big coins are stablecoins, and I think stablecoins have become extremely strong in their product market fit and are continuing to grow and will continue to roll out even further and further and further. I think there's a lot of innovation in that, and if I was to what I find fascinating is, USDT's market cap is bigger than Ripple's. And Ripple's intention was to send money cheaply and around the world and between banks and replace Swift. Well, the USDT has a bigger market cap than it and is doing exactly that, but it doesn't need Swift or a bank. It's going direct. So now you've got an innovation, right? A disruptive innovation, as opposed to what that was, is it was obviously replacing an old idea with a new idea. Um, Not really a new idea, but replacing an old idea with a different piece of technology. Whereas
Yeah.
this is like actually delivering on what it promised to do.
Yeah.
I think there's the underlying blockchains. I think they're going to still continue to do well and be used, like really used. Uh, and then I think there's a lot of, I still think DeFi is undervalued dramatically. It is, it's still working. It's still going. Yeah, we have problems throughout time, but it's got so much of, this is the early models, the early versions of the credit card. The credit card started off as a card that was actually surrounding little stores, like so retail stores, and people would be able to have these cards that come in for that retail store and get credit, and people lived around them, right? And I think that's the same thing here. DeFi is just these smaller versions of what eventually I think will be much bigger, venues and in this new financial system. And I think that's really important, and I think will continue to grow. And I think some of the projects that are sort of, third and fourth tier. Like there's one called Derive, which is an options DEX. It's the biggest options DEX. But now it's going, oh, actually options. We haven't really done options in crypto.
Mm.
And the options market is 3 times bigger than the spot market in traditional
Yeah.
equities. Right. So there's still so much growth
Yeah.
in some of these real fundamentals. I think there are a bunch of great product market fit businesses like crypto casinos that do well. And I think the cards, the crypto cards, I think that business is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I do think that that's where old system meets new system, and eventually the card will turn into just do a transaction between and don't use MasterCard or Visa.
Yeah. I want to kind of give you a little bit of kudos and thanks as well for the personal challenges that you've been through this last 3-4 years, particularly with the find our own case that went to ASIC and the pioneering approach that you took. First of all, great to see that you got a successful outcome with that and you won the case. But what did you kind of learn through that experience, and what do you think we need to be doing better to help innovators here in Australia, and how do you think we kind of better kind of, I guess educate and give the regulators some kind of comfort that, hey, look, these are like legitimate people, right? Like legitimate businesses that have created hundreds of jobs, paid taxes to Australia. Do you want to talk us through the case and the Find to Earn product?
Yeah, Find to Earn was a product that at the time, of low interest rates was a way to for Australians to convert their Australian dollars into crypto and then rent that out and make some yield. The ASIC took, effect on this and sued us in the federal court, even though I brought the product to them, called them up and said, hey, we're going to launch this product. And for a whole period of time, showed them what we're going to do. And then they turned around and sued us because they said, you don't have a financial services license. We'd obviously done the work. I'd read the law. Like I personally read it. And I knew what the law was, what a debenture was, and we had actively gone, okay, I don't think it's any of those products. I think this is a securities lending product. And a securities lending product is one where and it happens all the time, by the way. This is a normal practice. And if anyone has a stock trading account, this is actually probably happening with your stocks. Stockbrokers lend out your stocks and allow people to go short. And that's happening right now. So we basically did that and offered that. And yes, it was a lending product, but it's not a traditional credit arrangement. It's a securities lending arrangement. And that, I think, is a major breakthrough, right? That's a big innovation in terms of going and turning around going, no, you're wrong. You're not understanding this product. And I think it really showed to me, it wasn't like a let's work on this together. Hey, can you understand? And I gave testimony in the parliament about regulation, and I gave, I called them up. I can't be more like helpful trying to help, this direction. And to do that, to turn around and sue us, I felt really sent us backwards, way back in terms of innovation and fintech.
Yeah.
And people just went, if I go and do something innovative in Australia, I'll get sued. And, Joe Longo at the time, who has now left ASIC, there's actually a mention of Find to Earn and the service, he lost. And as I said, and I was quoted, and I said, look, if we went and sued the Wright brothers for not having a pilot's license before they went and launched their plane, or just after, where would we be? And that's the problem, right? You got to work with innovators.
Yeah.
You got to they're calling you up and going and showing the product, and you turn around and sue them. That is the exact opposite of innovation. That kills innovation, and why most of the crypto innovation and those businesses have now left Australia and continue to leave Australia.
Yeah.
And it was like, we're at the right time. We're about to innovate. We've got this, we were like well prepared. brought it to ASIC, tried to go and help, tried to go and bring regulation, and instead the result was, I'm going to go and sue you. By the way, another threat they made was to put me in jail for 3 years.
Really?
I'm like, what are you doing? It's very challenging for me to be supportive, and I think it's important. Like, there are people that are doing very bad things, but like, go and take issue with that, and
Yeah.
maybe for the people who are trying to innovate, just take a moment to, instead of going and doing regulation by enforcement, work with them and help innovate and create
Yeah.
jobs, create innovation, export it around the world, and because it was there.
Where do you see it now? Because obviously, regulations come in, Block Learner have won their case as well. Do you see things getting easier, or do you think it's still difficult?
I just think you've got fear. There's no
Yeah.
actual laws yet. Like, there's going to be there's proposal, but it's not. It's only confined to certain areas. There's not a large amount of clarity. I wrote a bunch of proposals. Um, there's no. The problem is, it's not done in a way where they're not like ASIC doesn't come out and speak to. ASIC's never given me a call.
Hmm.
Like, I'm pretty sure I would have a fairly strong view about how we could potentially regulate, given I've read all the laws and
Yeah.
proven I've read the laws. That's not a conducive environment for innovation. That is a we're going to go and smack you if you do something wrong, and we're not going to tell you if you're doing something wrong. I think most other people have understanding of the law and how it all stitches together within these products that are being created, and gone and made a product. Okay, let's maybe go and work with him, and maybe let's go and bring him
Hmm.
in the tent. And that's what people do in Singapore, right? They do that all the time.
Yeah. No, mate, they do. They do. I kind of.
They go and bring people in, and they go,
Yeah.
"You're an innovator. Come and help us." In
Yeah.
America, they do that. Let's go
Yeah.
and help us, and that's what we need. Like, that's
Yeah.
what. Let's get. Let's. You know, I don't. Like, we used to be this country. I remember in Australia, it used to be just so you have a fair go, and it was an innovative place. It was a prosperous place. And now it's very inward look.
We've putting your kind of entrepreneur hat on. We've talked a bit about AI, and we've touched a bit on kind of people and their careers, and this fear around losing their jobs. And what if you were a kind of career person, what advice would you have to career people around, hey, this is what you got to prepare for? And I'm not talking about Armageddon, but I'm talking about, like, this is how you're going to skill yourself up. These are the things that are really going to be of value to businesses, to customers, that you can protect yourself somewhat from getting that tap on the shoulder and being out of work for 6-12 months.
I have such a strong view on this. So
I'd love to
strong.
hear it.
My view is, firstly, if you want to get career, a good path, it doesn't matter what field you're in. It comes down to two things. This is the first thing, two things I would change. One, go and work in the office. Set up
Yeah.
and go to your place of business
Yeah.
and hang around with the senior leaders and listen to their problems. Hey, what's the biggest problem in the business right now? What do we need? And start thinking like an entrepreneur and solving those problems. And you know what? It was bizarre. I see this inside Finder, and I see it inside other organizations. There are people who take it upon themselves to go over and above and drive the company forward. And you could be an engineer. You could be a salesperson. You could be a receptionist. It doesn't matter. If you're bringing the company new money, driving it forward, executing on solutions to solve problems that drive the company forward, you are unreplaceable. You are essential. That is, people want people who build companies. They don't want people who do jobs anymore. Doing a job, you may have a skill, right, in your area, and you may go and deliver that skill. But if you, it's. I'll give you the best example. you have an all hands meeting, and the difference between the people who are going to survive and people who won't are the ones that after the all hands, they take notes, go back to their desks, and go and investigate the biggest problems in the company to go and drive it forward. Go and speak to the senior leaders, sit with them, have meetings with them, come up with solutions, propose it to them, drive it, deal with the problems that are around it, and push it forward. That's an essential person.
I'm totally in agreement with you. What do you think is, from an AI perspective, do you think people have to go out there and completely get clued up?
Yeah, I think that, you gotta just start using it and do something small.
Yeah.
That's just it's not negotiable. That's like, people still using paper and pen versus
Mate,
using a
I
computer.
started my recruitment career, right, as the workplace was starting to get computers on every desk.
Yeah.
And, I watched people come in who had 20 odd years experience doing a job, and we'd test them on using Word and Excel, and they'd fail the test, and we couldn't put them forward for an interview, right? And they'd obviously kick up a storm, and who do you think you are? But they were looking at a mouse and a keyboard and going, "What's this? What do you do with these things?" So I think this isn't anything new, right? Like, it's kind of, maybe it's the pace at which it's happening is probably unprecedented. But this evolution of how we adapt the tools and the workplace, I think that isn't anything new. And the stuff that you've talked about, right? I mean, that's like the ideal employee, right? Like, it's always been the case, right? Even when we didn't have computers, right? Like, it was always,
with or without computers, AI, whatever you want to become essential,
Mate,
drive a company.
Fred, we're coming to a wrap, but before we do, where can people find our rewards?
You just go either to the App Store and download the Finder app, or you can go on the website and all the rewards are there.
Cool. Mate, it's been so good to have you back on, and I'm really pleased to have you back, kind of firing on all cylinders again and not have the distractions that you've had to deal with. And look, congrats on, getting through this. It's like, kudos to you, my friend.
Appreciate it, Dexter. And I appreciate you continuing the fight as well.
Yeah, thanks, brother. As always, folks, you can catch up with me on LinkedIn and Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. If you're new to the show, make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts or subscribe on YouTube. And if you're coming back, thank you very much for your support. It really does mean a lot to me. Until the next one, keep